depending on what style of brewer you are, you've got your active fermentation, which like it's going crazy, it's bubbling. Then you've got your secondary stage, which is still the fermentation. You don't see the bubbles coming out, but it's still, the yeast make a mess, then they clean it up. They reabsorb like dioxadol, which is that butterscotch flavor. And you need to wait for that to take its course. That's the secondary. And then there's your conditioning stage, which is where the fermentation is finished, the yeast are settling out, and the beer is just, to a point, the longer you let the beer condition, the cleaner and smoother and just cleaner, I guess, the beer gets. So you can do your primary, your secondary, your conditioning stage, and turn a beer like this in 3 to 4 weeks. If you're brewing lagers, you're gonna cold condition, being just sitting at a cold temp to let the beer just clean up and get smoother and smoother.
All of our beer produced here is naturally carbonated, which means that once it is in its final package, there is residual sugar and residual yeast in that package, be that bottle, cask, or keg, that is then consumed by the yeast and turned into CO2. And because it's a closed package, it's reabsorbed into the beer, and thus we get carbonation. A lot of other American craft breweries, because it's a bit more consistent, will apply CO2 through a tank of gas, connected up to a bright tank or even connected up to their kegs, and then force CO2 into solution. That's a perfectly legitimate way of doing it, but my goal is to produce as an authentic British product as I can, and the type of beer that I learned to make in the UK required natural carbonation. I also think that the quality of carbonation you get is slightly different. It's a point of contention from brewer to brewer. It's something that we are arguing about all the time, about whether or not carbonation can really be different, but maybe it's bound up in other areas of the process, or it's just imagination. But there does seem to be some sort of noticeable difference between natural carbonation and what we call forced carbonation, which is the CO2 tank. But the jury's out on it. It's our process, and we're sticking to it. So you can easily overcarbonate with natural carbonation, but it's our preference is to do the beer this way. I'd call it a belief, but my palate also says that it's better. But until we do a triangular test of the exact same beer, a bunch of different ways, it's kind of hard to say exactly.
We're going to add our hops at this time and start a timer for 1 hour. We're going to be using Willamette today, probably about 1 ounce of whole hops. So we've added our hops and everything's mixed in, and we are going to start our timer for 1 hour.